November 22nd, 2021, two officers were dispatched to investigate a residence after the property owner grew concerned that someone had broken inside. The home operates as an Airbnb rental, though the owner was confident no guests had been booked for that particular evening. She had stopped by the property and immediately noticed the front door was wide open. Alarmed by what she found, she contacted the police to sweep the premises for any unwanted visitors. The officers showed up and got to work. But as they made their way through the home, something deeply unsettling began to unfold. What took place during that search left both officers genuinely shaken. Every moment was recorded on the body camera of one of the responding officers. Judge for yourself what's going on here.
They're out of town right now. They're with his parents.
And how many rooms do you have?
2 upstairs and 1 downstairs.
All right, we're gonna have to go and search the house. Is it okay if we go in?
Yeah, of course.
You don't have any like pets or dogs or anything?
No.
Just stay here, man.
Police, if anyone's here, make yourself known.
Police. Anyone inside?
I'm gonna check downstairs, you get upstairs.
Police. Anyone inside, make yourself known.
Downstairs clear. Upstairs clear?
Yeah.
Now, one detail that stands out in this footage is that every single closet appears to be completely bare. Strange as it looks, the video's description actually explains it, Since the owner rents the place out through Airbnb, she keeps personal belongings like clothing removed from the space to stop guests from walking off with them, which accounts for the empty closets. Another thing people in the comments keep bringing up is why the officers never bother flipping on the lights. That's actually standard procedure. Pausing to hunt for a light switch during an active search could cost an officer their life. Every bit of focus has to stay locked on any potential threat in the room. What's far harder to explain away, though, are the doors swinging open on their own as the officer clears the upper floor, and those sudden footsteps that seem to come from directly behind him. Whatever was responsible, at the very least, the homeowner can take comfort knowing no human intruder was found inside. Though depending on where she stands on the paranormal, the idea of sharing her property with something else entirely might not be much of a relief. Like so many clips before it, this one doesn't offer any easy answers. TikTok creator, going by the name Michael Margie, says that something deeply unsettling has taken hold of his house. After a series of strange, unexplained incidents begin occurring throughout the property, Michael decides to install multiple security cameras around his home in hopes of catching whatever might be responsible. His first posted video features footage recorded from inside the house. Everything looks completely ordinary at first, but then by this point, Michael is convinced his home may be haunted, but what unfolds next is far more disturbing. He's sitting in his room when he suddenly picks up on strange noises just outside his door. Unsettled, he slowly pulls out his phone and starts filming. He pushes the door open and peers down the staircase toward the lower level. For a brief moment, the house is completely still, and then
okay, it's like the middle of the day. I'm the only person in the house, and just heard some footsteps going up and down the stairs. I've checked all the rooms. There is nobody in. It's been doing it for about 10 minutes. There it is again. Okay. Let's see if I can get the camera this time. Hello? Mike? Charlie?
Following that frightening moment, Michael posts another collection of security camera clips, and once again, objects throughout the house appear to shift entirely on their own. Chairs reposition themselves, items glide across flat surfaces, and doors nudge open as though something invisible is moving through the space. But in the footage that follows, viewers pick up on something even more unsettling. While going back through his kitchen camera recording, one viewer flags something chilling that occurs just before the refrigerator swings open. There's a low, rumbling growl. It's subtle enough to miss on the first listen, but if you pay close attention, that sound doesn't quite fit the usual explanation of a settling house or a kicking on appliance. A number of viewers are convinced it bears a disturbing resemblance to something animal-like, and the activity shows no signs of letting up. As more days go by, the incidents inside Michael's home begin to intensify. Things are no longer just nudging slightly out of place. Now they're being hurled across the room with real force, as though whatever is present is growing increasingly agitated. Then, in a separate kitchen recording, things take an even stranger turn. Viewers have pointed out that the growling noise seems to surface exclusively in the kitchen, leading some to speculate that whatever entity is present may be concentrated in that particular area. But the most harrowing moment is still ahead. One night, at exactly 3:22 a.m., Michael is jolted awake by a rhythmic clicking and knocking coming from the attic directly above his bedroom.
3:20 in the morning. Like clockwork, it started scratching and banging again. So it just don't stop. Can't sleep. And I've decided I'm gonna go up this time. I'm gonna take the camera up. You can hear it now. I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna try and I'm just gonna face this thing. I'm gonna just see if we can catch something on tape, and just see what we get. Hello? Hello? Look. If you're there, I want you to leave my house. No, fuck this. I'm staying downstairs. Do whatever it wants. I'm done. I'm done.
He grabs his phone and starts recording as he cautiously pulls himself up into the attic to take a look. The space seems completely vacant at first, until a guitar suddenly shifts on its own. Horrified, Michael demands that whatever is in his home get out. But before he can even finish the sentence, a box is hurled straight at his face. Shaken and terrified, he bolts out of the attic and races downstairs. Whatever is in that house now appears to be directly responding to him. The next clip, once again, pulls from the kitchen security camera, but this time, the scale of the activity has grown. A heavy table drags itself across the floor, the kind of movement that would normally demand considerable physical effort. Whatever force is behind these disturbances seems to be getting stronger. And the video after that only deepens the mystery. Michael starts recording his bedroom door after noticing it swinging back and forth repeatedly in a way that doesn't seem right.
This is what he was doing, it's just going back and forth, back and forth. Like there's nobody in there. There's no windows open. All the windows are shut today. So like it's definitely not a draft. And I'm just gonna let it do its thing for a minute, and then I'm gonna take you in and I'll show you that there's nobody else in there either. So let's give it a second. See. Let's go have a look. Go. Hello? Just make sure there's no one behind the door. Nobody in there. There's nobody in here. You see both windows are shut. So there's no draft being caused. In this corner, nobody in there. Not physically possible for anyone to hide.
Some viewers initially suggested a draft might be to blame, but Michael steps into the room to address that directly. Every window is shut, and there's no airflow anywhere near strong enough to account for what the door is doing, which leads to a deeply unsettling question. Could something invisible be the one pushing it? But it's the final piece of footage that may be the hardest to shake. In this last recording, a security camera watches over Michael as he sleeps. For several seconds, nothing seems out of the ordinary. Then a dark, shadowy shape begins drifting across the room. It moves slowly toward the bed. A deep growl rises up once more, and the shadow leans down over Michael, appearing to make contact with him. At that precise instant, Michael snaps awake in a panic and launches himself out of bed. But when he scans the room, there's nothing there. The figure has vanished completely. So what is actually going on inside this house? Some viewers think the footage points to a poltergeist, a paranormal entity widely associated with object manipulation and loud, disruptive activity. Others feel the growling and the increasingly aggressive behavior hint at something far more sinister. In many paranormal traditions, an entity that starts by moving objects and eventually makes direct contact with a living person is often linked to demonic presence. Skeptics, however, maintain that the whole thing could be a carefully staged hoax. So where do you land on this? Did Michael genuinely document something paranormal inside his home? Or is there a more rational explanation? I'll leave that one up to you. Couple behind the YouTube channel, Restless Spirit Paranormal, made their way to the notoriously haunted Monroe House in Hartford City, Indiana. While conducting their investigation, something deeply unsettling was recorded as they carried out a ritual inside the building. A glow stick resting on a table suddenly shifted on its own with no one near it.
Kind of sound like. Wait, what did it move?
That was the trip wire just moved.
And my leg is on it, but I'm not moving.
I just heard something slide across that
It
table.
was the trip wire, I saw it.
And
Slide
we weren't
over and
moving.
move.
And we weren't
Nothing
moving.
else moved, it just moved.
Kind of sound like. Kind of sound like. Wait, what did it move?
That was the trip
Paranormal investigators frequently face accusations of faking these kinds of moments, choreographing their reactions ahead of time, but the movement here looked completely spontaneous and unplanned. Even the couple themselves appeared genuinely startled by what unfolded. Some viewers are convinced a spirit thought to inhabit the house was responsible for the disturbance. Others aren't so sure, wondering whether there might be a perfectly rational explanation behind it. So the question remains, what actually made that glow stick move? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. On May 7th, 2026, a man had just made a quick stop at 7-Eleven and was making his way back to his dorm room solo at around 2 in the morning. The second he stepped inside, something immediately caught him off guard.
นั่นคือลงไปเซเว่นมาพอนี่สิ่งที่ปิดประตูแล้วเข้ามานี่ไม่ได้ตัดต่อเลยนะเลข1เลข2เลข3เลข4 5 1 2 3 4 5จริงทุกอย่างจริงทุกอย่างกลับเข้าห้องมาให้ปิดไฟนะ
As he switches the light off, a dark, shadowy figure becomes visible through the window, just standing out on the balcony, which sits pretty high off the ground. His first instinct is that maybe someone had scaled the building to get onto the balcony, so he holds his position near the door for a bit before finally working up the nerve to go investigate.
จะไปดูด้านนอกนะคือมองอย่างเงี้ยก็ไม่มีอะไรนะเนี่ยอันนี้เปิดไปดูด้านนอกนะนี่คือที่เปิดตะกี้ตรงนี้เนี่ยคือด้านนอกไม่มีอะไรอันนี้ที่สอง
He swings the door open and finds absolutely nothing. No one out there, no explanation for what he witnessed. So he attempts to recreate the exact conditions of that night to see if he can make sense of it. But regardless of what he tries, that shadowy shape never reappears. The real question still hanging in the air is, what exactly was standing on his balcony at 2 in the morning? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The next story involves a woman named Amelia, a mother who relocated to a home in France with her kids sometime in September 2024. Not long after settling in, her 3-year-old daughter became absolutely terrified to set foot in her own bedroom, crying and screaming about a lady on the ceiling with big teeth.
Elle a des grandes dents?
Oui.
Oh non.
Elle sourit.
Elle sourit? Ça te fait peur?
Oui. Elle reste toujours sur le plafond et me regarde.
Elle te regarde et ça te fait peur?
Oui.
D'accord, mon cœur, elle va partir. Elle va partir, la dame.
Pas moi.
Initially, Amelia assumed her daughter was simply having bad dreams, but the child went on to describe this figure with unsettling precision. A woman with long dark brown hair, oversized hands, lengthy nails, and large teeth. Amelia tried to calm her daughter down and convince her everything was fine, but just minutes later, the bedroom light began to flicker, prompting her to start recording again. And what she captured will make your skin crawl. Pay close attention.
Oui, je te crois, ma fille.
Maman, il me regarde.
The door swings open on its own, and when she rushes over to investigate, there's nobody there. On its own, that might be easy to dismiss, but given what her daughter had described only moments earlier, it becomes something far more disturbing. Then on a separate night, while the whole household is sleeping, Amelia starts picking up strange sounds. something resembling the clatter of hooves echoes briefly through the house. Then a door begins shutting by itself, and the television switches on while both children are sound asleep in their beds. She decides to set up security cameras throughout the home, and over the following nights, they record a number of deeply unsettling moments. On one occasion, she was broadcasting a live video tour of the house for her followers, when suddenly, every light in the place starts going haywire.
J'ai pas de trucs dans les mains. Et là, c'est la chambre de mon fils, je vais aller vite. Voilà. Ça va mieux là déjà. Et... je vais dingue. Est-ce que vous entendez les pas juste?
The complete footage aired during her live stream, but no full replay was saved, only this extracted portion. As you can see, she's walking through the house, completely alone, when the lights begin flashing, and she holds up her hands to the mirror to show she's not operating any kind of switch. Then, while she's upstairs in her son's room, footsteps can clearly be heard on the floor below, and they vanish the moment she races down the stairs toward them. The terror in her voice and her body language is unmistakable, and things escalate to the point where she completely breaks down in front of her live audience.
Ouais, je suis toute seule, ouais. Ouais, mais merci Kim, t'es un amour. Mais franchement, il y a des jours, c'est fatigant en fait. En plus, je pense que je suis malade parce que j'arrête pas de vomir et tout. Donc la fatigue, la maladie et en plus tu remets les bruits là, de merde là.
During yet another solo live stream, an unexplained sound erupts in the background, reducing Amelia to tears. But nothing could prepare her for what came next. One day, while stepping into her daughter's bedroom, she encountered something straight out of a nightmare. The original footage was taken down, so only the slowed down version remains. See what was waiting behind that door. As the door swings open, a dark, shadowy figure is visible standing in the center of the room, startling her before disappearing entirely. Amelia has since revealed that she's been plagued by nightmares in which something tries to take her daughter away from her. She brought someone in to cleanse the property with white sage, but rather than helping, it seemed to make things even worse. She is now desperately frightened and deeply concerned for her daughter's well-being, and having only lived there a matter of months, she is doing everything she can to get out. She also noted that the property has a sealed-off condemned well in the garden, which could potentially be connected to everything that's been happening. But until more information comes to light, this case stays firmly unsolved. Our next video was posted to Reddit, just a couple of days ago by the user whose name you can see on screen. She shared surveillance footage captured at her place of work. As she explained it, she showed up to her job one morning to discover a TV had toppled over onto the floor. Puzzled as to what might have caused it, she pulled up the security footage to investigate, and what she found is genuinely hard to dismiss.
That is weird.
The television begins moving by itself before suddenly crashing down, and not a single person is anywhere in sight. What makes the whole thing even more unsettling is the way it seems to shift and tilt beforehand, almost like an invisible hand was giving it a nudge. Details are pretty scarce. There's no information about where exactly this took place or whether the location has any kind of documented history, which only adds to the mystery. Let us know what you make of it in the comments below. In October 2024, a French woman going by Alex began posting videos to TikTok, explaining that shortly after settling into her new home, disturbing and unexplainable things started occurring. Even though she was frightened, she pushed through her fear and tried to document everything as it unfolded.
À bientôt pour un nouveau concert.
The longer she stayed in the house, the more frequently strange things happened, and the activity seemed to peak whenever she found herself there alone. After a series of loud banging sounds rattled her nerves, Alex grabbed her phone and hit record. As she swept the camera across the room, a drawer slid open by itself, sending a wave of dread through her. She headed toward the staircase to check the floor below, but the sudden thunder of footsteps pounding up the stairs caught her so off guard that she fumbled and dropped her phone. Even her cat went tearing downstairs in a panic. For a brief period after that, things seemed to settle, but as usual, the calm never holds. While she was lying down in her bedroom, Alex began picking up the faint, distant notes of a piano playing. She crept downstairs to investigate. The haunting melody continued right up until she entered the room, at which point it cut off completely. She stood there, staring at the piano in disbelief, when a nearby cabinet or sofa sent objects toppling to the floor, and then her eyes landed on the rocking chair, swaying gently back and forth as though someone had only just stood up from it. Whatever presence has made itself at home, there apparently has a soft spot for toys. While Alex was watching cartoons in the sun-soaked room, she suddenly heard banging coming from her son's bedroom, and the moment she stepped through the door, her stomach dropped. A large stuffed teddy bear was moving on its own, its legs swinging rhythmically back and forth. Even her cat sat frozen, unable to look away. Needless to say, these experiences have made getting a decent night's sleep nearly impossible. Then again, it's tough to rest easy when your housemate is a ghost with a fixation on stuffed animals. Captured at an isolated hotel tucked away in rural Mexico, this unsettling footage documents the bizarre incidents that staff members have been dealing with over the years. During one particular shift, a housekeeper notices a figure standing at the window of room 30, a room that should have been completely empty. She reports it to the manager, who goes to investigate and finds nobody there. Or so it seems, because later that very same day, the story takes a darker turn.
Aquí más cerquita. Sí, miren, ahí se ve, se alcanza a ver una cara, unos ojos. Vamos a ver. Vamos a ver a esa habitación. Estamos subiendo las escaleras porque desde ahí es donde estábamos viendo que se veía. Aquí ya no se ve nada, a lo mejor por el reflejo de la luz. Y vamos a ver en la habitación. Aquí está la cama, porque esta es una habitación pequeña. Aquí pues no se ve nada. Y aquí está la tele donde estábamos, donde se supone que se veía, pero no se ve nada. Imagínate, porque se ve...
As the manager makes her way toward the room, a ghostly face with sunken, hollow eyes appears to be staring back at her from behind the glass. She rushes upstairs and steps inside, only to find the face gone without a trace. Then, without warning, something stirs in the room, sending a loud crash echoing through the silence and sending the terrified manager bolting straight out the door. The staff is now convinced that what they've captured is undeniable evidence that their Mexican hotel is home to something not of this world. A woman was making her way down a hotel hallway in the late hours of the night. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and she was scrolling through her phone without a care in the world until something occurred that would leave her absolutely shaken. See for yourself what the security footage captured. As she moved further down the hall, a large potted plant sitting in the corner suddenly toppled over with no apparent cause. What made the whole thing even more unsettling was that a split second before it fell, a dark, shadow-like shape briefly appeared on the camera before disappearing just as quickly. Shortly after, the woman described feeling something like a powerful rush of air sweep across her face. This was particularly baffling given that the hallway was entirely sealed off from outside airflow. Overcome with fear, she wasted no time getting as far away from that spot as possible. Nobody has managed to come up with a rational explanation for what took place that night. On August 22nd, 2025, residents across California found themselves looking up at something truly unusual unfolding in the sky above them. Judge for yourself what they managed to capture.
Jesus, look at that. How many?
They're deeper in the clouds.
The room clear in here, look.
There, drifting among the clouds, was what appeared to be a face bearing a striking resemblance to Jesus Christ, bathed in a radiant glow that seemed almost like a halo surrounding it. For countless witnesses, this was no random occurrence. It felt like something far more meaningful. Several people drew a connection to the well-known biblical passage, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands." To many, this fleeting image served as a gentle reassurance that even in the midst of a turbulent world, something greater is always present and watching over us. On the other hand, skeptics suggested there could be a perfectly rational explanation, that the human mind is simply wired to detect recognizable features like faces in abstract or unstructured patterns, such as shifting cloud formations. So the question remains, was this truly something divine or nothing more than a trick of the mind? This one comes straight from Telegram, posted by a barber who claims his security camera picked up something he simply cannot make sense of. He says nothing remotely like this has occurred in his shop before, and he's still trying to find a rational explanation for what was recorded. See for yourself what his camera caught. You'll notice both chair covers shift slightly on their own, something a breeze or a nearby fan could easily account for. But then the sheet on the left starts behaving in a way that's hard to dismiss. It rises up from the seat as though someone has just settled into it, yet there's nobody standing behind that chair and nothing hidden beneath it either. One of the barber's friends gets so unsettled by the atmosphere that he turns around and walks straight out the door. Neither of them actually noticed anything unusual while it was happening, but once they pulled up the CCTV footage and watched it back, they were completely shaken. Michael is a gaming streamer based out of Florida who typically uses his social media presence to share highlights from his streams. Paranormal content had never been part of his online world until one night when he and his family encountered something none of them could explain. His parents say they kept being jolted awake by a strange tapping sound coming from their window in the dead of night, and they had no idea what to think of it. Fortunately, they had a home security system set up, so they pulled up the footage to investigate, and whatever was on that recording had them reaching for the phone to get Michael on the line immediately.
Look, it's starting now. The security light turns on. It picks up. And then it walks back. It's at the corner of the house. You see him walking? It's like a short guy. And then you see the trees move. Y los árboles se movió.
Y camina, es una persona, no una persona chiquitica, muy chiquitica.
Evening, Valdo and his wife head out, noticing nothing out of the ordinary before they leave. They return home later to find everything appearing completely undisturbed. But the following morning, when his wife steps outside, she comes across something deeply unsettling right on their doorstep. There in the snow, you can clearly see footprints, though not the kind you'd expect. These are bare footprints, as though someone had walked through the snow with no shoes on, and that's only the beginning. One print faces forward, while the other faces the complete opposite direction, as though whatever had been standing there wasn't quite right. Curious and unnerved, she decides to trace the tracks across the yard. As she follows them further, though, the pattern starts to shift. What initially appeared to be two human feet gradually transforms into something far stranger. One print that looks human and another that resembles something more like an animal. Then, without any warning or logical reason, the trail simply ends, as if whatever left those marks just ceased to exist. Some people believe this could be the work of a skinwalker, while others lean toward a more rational explanation. But the one thing that keeps nagging at everyone who hears this story: why were those tracks heading directly toward their front door? He was out on his motorcycle when something absolutely terrifying unfolded. The clip you're about to see was filmed by a young man navigating a dark mountain road late at night, with snow piled up along both sides. Then, without any warning, something chilling crossed his path. See for yourself what his camera picked up. Out of nowhere, a small figure darts across the road, and if you look carefully, you'll notice it appears grayish in color, almost see-through, and its form doesn't match any creature we'd recognize. The rider himself had no idea anything unusual had occurred in that moment. It wasn't until he went back and reviewed the footage afterward that the shock truly hit him. So if this thing wasn't a person, and it wasn't any kind of animal, as many viewers are insisting, what exactly do you think it was? A woman from Mexico says she's employed at a hotel where unsettling incidents tend to occur after dark. She claims that one night, while manning the front desk by herself, she spotted something odd going on near the hotel pool. Not sure what to make of it, she called other staff members over to review the security camera footage. And what they found left the entire team shaken. A peculiar, luminous figure appears to be floating just above the surface of the pool. What makes the clip even more unnerving is the shape of the light itself. It's unlike anything ordinary, and it drifts slowly through the area as though it's acting with some kind of intention. Once the video made its way online, plenty of viewers suggested it was nothing more than a technical glitch or a trick of the pool lighting, but others weren't so easily convinced. They believe the camera recorded something far more inexplicable. So where do you stand? Was this just an artifact in the recording? Or did something genuinely otherworldly show up that night? A man named Chris uploaded this footage that his mother recorded during a family gathering in Colombia. While she's filming casual moments with relatives, she unknowingly catches something deeply unsettling on camera.
Ya estamos aquí en la merienda. Tamalito con chocolate, queso, pan y mantecadita. Buen provecho para todos. Marta, siente.
Did you catch that? As the family is seated for their meal, what appears to be a small, semi-transparent girl dashes across the frame at an incredible speed, completely unnoticed by everyone present. Now, a number of people in the comments on Chris's video argued that this was just a real child running by, despite the fact that her head appears to be see-through. Chris then uploaded a follow-up video to demonstrate that passing through that space would be physically impossible, even for a small child.
Esa es la sala, que es el comedor. A este lado hay una pared, unas piezas por donde no sabemos por qué se dirigió hacia allá. Y aquí es el mesón. Estaban diciendo que el niño sale debajo del mesón, pero es imposible. Entonces si ustedes miran el video es como si lo hubiera atravesado.
Chris maintains that no child was anywhere near this dinner, so the question remains. Man on the closing shift at a large grocery store is wrapping up the usual end-of-night routine, rounding up carts, straightening the aisles, and getting everything squared away before the staff heads out. He's recording casually on his phone and narrating in Spanish, mentioning that the store is just about shut down and that only a handful of employees are still around. The place looks still, the shelves are mostly bare of customers, and everything seems perfectly normal. That is, until something crosses the aisle without warning. Keep your eyes on the screen.
La tienda ya la están cerrando. De hecho, estamos recogiendo ya los carros, llenando todo lo que se quedó en los Mierda. Estoy viendo a un niño como jugando. Mira. ¿Sí vieron? Y ya está, ya la tienda ya está cerrada. Pues ya nada más estamos recogiendo lo de los pasillos. No mames. ¿Sí vieron? Vete a la mierda. Y ya está todo cerrado aquí. Me voy a acercar. Míralo, ahí está como que jugando. Está como que metiéndose entre los pasillos. No me quiero ni acercar, la neta me da un chingo de miedo, pero... Ay, güey, ¿qué hago? A ver, me voy por acá. Y es que ya no hay nada de gente, ni siquiera están sus padres, o sea, no hay literalmente nadie. Niño, ya cerraron la tienda, vámonos. ¿Estás perdido? Niño. No mames, ya no está. Niño. Niño. ¿Estás perdido? Y ya la neta, ya la tienda ya la están cerrando. De hecho, estamos recogiendo ya los carros, llenando todo lo que se quedó en los... Mierda. A ver, ya tengo que acabar con esto, ¿Dónde se metió? No mames. Güey, ¿qué pedo? ¿Qué pedo? ¿Sí vieron? Ya no hay absolutamente nadie. No mames. Esto es en la tienda donde trabajo. Y bueno, eso es lo que pasa. La verdad es que ya van varias noches que se escuchan ruidos y se ven apariciones.
A small, dark figure, shaped like a person, shoots from one side of the aisle to the other, so fast you could almost blink and miss it. It stands roughly the height of a young child, but the way it moves doesn't feel right. Staying low and completely silent before disappearing behind the shelving units, the man's reaction is immediate. He gasps, mutters a curse, and it's obvious he's rattled by what just passed in front of him. But the video doesn't stop there. As he makes his way into a different part of the store, a second sighting occurs, and this time it's far slower, which somehow makes the whole thing more unsettling. Hugging the floor, a grey shadowy shape comes into view, crawling on all fours along the middle of the aisle. Its movements are awkward and jerky, almost like something mimicking a small child but failing to pull it off convincingly. It then slides behind a product display and vanishes. The man murmurs that he thinks there might be a child playing in the store. He calls out into the darkened aisle, asking if someone named Neo is there, telling them the store is closed, and wondering if they're lost. But silence is the only response. Some people watching the footage believe the figure could be a duende, a small mischievous spirit rooted in Latin American and Spanish folklore, commonly said to lurk in homes, shops, and places frequented by children. Others suspect the video was doctored or set up entirely, but the man himself insists this wasn't the first unsettling night he'd experienced in that store. He says there had been unexplained sounds, strange apparitions, and that same tiny presence spotted in the aisles on multiple occasions. So what exactly was moving through that darkened supermarket after closing time? A lost child? An elaborate hoax? A camera artifact? Or something that doesn't belong in our world, returning night after night once the lights go dim? The answer, as always, is yours to make.
Como jugando, mira, ¿sí vieron? Lo de los pasillos, no mames, ¿sí vieron? Pues ya nada más estamos recogiendo lo de los pasillos, no mames, ¿sí vieron?
First clip today comes from a TikTok page going by the name The Haunted Phone, and that title couldn't be more fitting given what we're about to witness. A creepy old telephone that seems to have a life of its own. Think of it as the black phone, but real. The video opens with the person behind the account just walking through his home when, out of nowhere, the phone starts ringing, completely on its own. In the next clip, he's moved the phone out to a shed in his yard. You can see he's actually disassembled the thing, trying to work out what's causing it to ring. But even after going through all of that trouble, this is what happens. Somehow, despite being completely disconnected from any power source, the phone is still ringing. By every logical standard, that shouldn't be happening. And yet here we are. You can even make out the small metal hammer inside swinging back and forth, physically striking the bells. I don't know about you, but this is giving me serious black phone energy. Let's just hope that if he ever picks it up, there isn't some restless spirit on the other end looking to have a conversation. What makes this footage so unsettling for a lot of viewers is that the ringing isn't merely a sound. The internal mechanism is visibly moving on its own, even with the phone completely taken apart. Some people think this could be a case of an unseen force manipulating a physical object, particularly meaningful, given that phones are, by their very nature, tools for sending messages. Others are quick to suggest a more straightforward explanation. Old mechanical phones operate on springs and tension, and things like vibrations, shifts in temperature, or leftover mechanical energy could theoretically set them off. Skeptics also note that with brief clips like these, the possibility of off-camera interference can't be fully dismissed. Still, watching a gutted telephone ring with no explanation is enough to rattle most people, and this one certainly raises more questions than it puts to rest. A man living in Mexico decided one night to try out a spirit board, driven by nothing more than idle curiosity. For several days, not a single thing occurred, and he began to feel like the whole experiment was pointless. Then one night, while he was alone in the house, he picked up the sound of footsteps in the hallway, barely audible at first, then drawing nearer, then too loud and too deliberate to brush off. See for yourself what unfolded.
Chi è? Chi fa casino?
Chi è che si sentiva? Chi c'è?
Without any warning, something slammed to the floor behind him, and he found himself completely frozen. The atmosphere in the room shifted, thick, oppressive, as though another presence had positioned itself right beside him, despite nothing being visible. It shook him to his core, but the story didn't end there. Just 3 days on, his wife was left alone in the house, and whatever it was came looking for her as well.
Chi c'è? La luce. Chi è stato? Chi ha bussato? Non sono pazza. Non sono pazza. C'è qualcuno? Chi c'è? Dove sei? Fatti vedere. Dove sei? No, dove? Da dove? La cucina, la cucina, la cucina. Cazzo. Cazzo. Qui sto sfuggendo.
She became aware of knocking at the front door, followed by unsettling noises filtering in from the kitchen, and then glasses began toppling and smashing with nobody anywhere near them. Whatever had entered the home appeared to be getting bolder by the day. Both of them are now convinced that the spirit board cracked something open, something neither of them had the first clue how to seal back up. So was this just anxiety feeding on itself and spiraling? Or did they genuinely manage to invite something sinister in? This clip has been described as something far more unsettling than your typical ghost encounter. In the recording, a woman finds herself alone near a beach late at night, surrounded by total silence. Somewhere out in the darkness, she spots a solitary figure sitting by the water's edge. Driven by curiosity and concerned the stranger might need assistance, she cautiously moves closer while keeping her camera rolling.
Beira da praia. E eu vim aqui dar uma olhadinha no mar. Sempre faço isso à noite, né? Dá uma pensada na vida. E eu olhei que ali embaixo parece que tem alguém ali, ó, sentado na areia. Vocês conseguem ver? Ai, eu tô curiosa, eu tô com vontade de ir lá ver. Lá. Jesus amado. Meu Deus, me guarda, Pai. Ai, deixa eu descer aqui. Não pode ser, não tem ninguém aqui. É uma praia bem deserta. E olha, parece que tem uma pessoa ali. Sentado, ó. A água bate nela. Gente do céu. Eu tô com medo. Mas eu tô com mais curiosidade do que medo. Ai, Jesus, água. Olha lá. Vocês conseguem ver? Vou aproximar um pouquinho. Tô com um pouquinho de medo. Será que é uma pessoa? Ai, meu Pai. Jesus, me guarda, Deus. Olha isso. Ai, meu Deus. Será que é uma pessoa? Moça? Moça? Eu tô com medo de me aproximar mais. Moça? Moça? Olha. Ai, Jesus, eu tô tremendo. Eu tô tremendo. Nossa! Ai, meu Deus, eu tô tremendo. É sério isso, Jesus?
As she narrows the gap between them, the mysterious figure is clearly visible, motionless, head hanging down, completely unresponsive to any attempts at communication. The tension builds steadily as the figure refuses to stir or acknowledge her presence. But then, everything shifts in an instant when the seated woman suddenly lurches to her feet and begins charging directly toward the person filming. The sheer terror of the moment sends her into a full-blown panic as she scrambles to get away. In the following clip you're about to watch, it's 3 a.m. inside a family home, completely quiet, nothing unusual in the air, and then, just before everything breaks loose, a distorted electronic sound begins bleeding through the silence. Something like a voice caught between static and dead frequencies, faint enough to almost dismiss. And then this happens. That distorted voice, cutting through the silence, right before it all broke loose, is the detail that sits with you longest. Because in paranormal research, electronic interference immediately preceding a visual manifestation is considered one of the stronger indicators of an intelligent presence drawing on electromagnetic energy to make itself visible, pulling from whatever power source is available in the environment right before it crosses the threshold into something the human eye can register. A presence that announces itself through static before it appears is one that understands the mechanics of its own manifestation, which puts it in a very different category from something residual or passive. In multiple documented cases, this exact sequence, distorted audio followed by a visual apparition, has been associated with entities that are not only intelligent but deliberate, ones that choose the hour, choose the location, and choose who sees them. 3 a.m, a dark hallway, and something that let the static go first. So what do you think? Was that voice the sound of something gathering enough energy to finally be seen, or a warning that nobody in that house was meant to hear? In this next clip, a woman describes what she believes she caught on a family sleigh ride in Deer Valley, a nighttime outing through snowy, wooded mountains with her husband, 2 kids, and 2 sleigh drivers. That's it. No one else around for miles. She says she considers herself spiritually aware, but this was the first time she had anything she could actually point to on camera. The clip itself is only a few seconds of ordinary family footage. Kids bundled under a blanket, dark trees rolling past, her husband smiling over at the camera. Nothing looks wrong at all. Listen closely.
I caught a mimic on camera pretending to be my child. And I know that sounds so crazy, but I'm about to play this video for you so that you can watch it yourself. And I consider myself pretty spiritually awake. I'm an intuitive, but this is the first time that I actually have physical evidence. And I've watched this video many times and I still have yet to come up with a rational or logical explanation as to what this voice is. In this video, my family and I are on a sleigh ride in Deer Valley, and we are in the middle of the mountains. There is no one around us. The only people on this sleigh are me, my husband, the 2 children that you see, and the 2 drivers, who are 2 grown men. Yet in the first 5 seconds of the video, you clearly hear a loud voice that says, "Hello, Daddy." This voice is clearly not my daughter's voice because you can see her mouth in the video. It doesn't move. And some may argue that this voice is my son's voice because his mouth is covered up. But if you watch the video, you can see that my son starts speaking towards the end and it's very muffled. It's in complete contrast to this loud, crisp, clear voice that you hear in the beginning. And additionally, this voice seems to have like a weird British Victorian accent. I don't even know what kind of accent it is. And my son does not speak like that. But yeah, just watch this video and let me know what you think.
Hello.
Daddy.
A little warmer over there.
It's beautiful. Oh, fun. Getting exercise. No, in my eye.
At around 1 minute and 34 seconds into the recording, a voice cuts through the ambient sounds of the moving sleigh, high-pitched, childlike, unmistakably clear, saying, "Hello, Daddy." The girl's mouth isn't moving when it happens, and if you focus on the boy, his voice later in the clip is completely muffled by his face covering, making it nearly impossible he produced something that crisp and theatrical. She describes the accent as having a strange, almost old-fashioned quality, not American, almost Victorian in its delivery. That description is what stops people in the comments. A mimic, in paranormal circles, refers to an entity believed to copy the voices or appearance of people close to you, sometimes a child, sometimes a family member, often in an attempt to get a response. And whatever spoke on that sleigh, it knew exactly what to say. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man has been documenting what he started calling the Shadow Man, an entity that has been making itself known in increasingly aggressive ways over a period of weeks. And by the time he started filming, the activity had already moved well past the point of easy dismissal. He'd been hearing scratching coming from the bathroom at night, set his phone on the floor to capture whatever was making it, and what showed up in the doorway is the kind of thing that reframes everything that came after. Watch.
So I've been hearing some strange noises coming from this bathroom. And so I'm going to set up this camera to record and see if we catch anything. I've never caught anything on camera before, so I'm hoping that this might be the first time, but kind of sounds like scratches.
A tall, dark, humanoid silhouette holds its position in the bathroom doorway. Not translucent, not misty, but darker than the space around it. The kind of solid absence that multiple cultural traditions describe in exactly the same way. A shadow that has taken on a shape and decided to stay in it. Some researchers connect phenomena like this to the concept of jinn in Middle Eastern folklore, entities believed to exist parallel to the human world and capable of appearing in darkened spaces. Whatever this was, it didn't move away. It stayed. That changed everything. In the days that followed, the activity didn't settle. It got louder. The man began sharing updates, and by the next one, he was no longer alone in noticing something was wrong. Listen closely.
Okay guys, I think I fucked up a little bit. Do you hear that? What the fuck is that? Charlie, cat's right here. She doesn't seem to be worried about it.
A persistent, rhythmic rattling and scraping sound fills the room, originating from the direction of a closed door and dresser just off camera, while his cat, completely alert, body rigid, sits on the bed and stares unblinking in the exact same direction. Animals don't perform unease. That cat's fixed, tense stare is the kind of corroboration that viewers always point to because it confirms the sound had a presence, a location, something the cat could sense even when the camera couldn't catch it visually. The rattling was continuous, stopping only when the man's visible distress peaked, as if whatever was doing it knew it had his full attention. By third update, he'd had enough. Sleep deprived and visibly worn down, he decided to confront it directly, walking toward the hallway camera in hand, telling whatever was there that it wasn't welcome anymore. Watch closely.
All right. I appreciate all the well wishes. I haven't been getting great sleep lately. I don't know if it's because of this, but I'm going to take your advice. It's been slamming the doors again this morning. I'm just going to tell it to get the fuck out of here. Okay?
All right, this is it. You are not welcome here. You need to leave. We are done with your bullshit. We are not going to take it anymore, okay? You need to get the fuck out. No, this is some fucking bullshit.
A human-shaped figure stands perfectly still in the lit doorway at the end of a dark hall, and then a low, guttural growl comes from its direction before the door slams shut with force, sending the man running toward it in alarm. A growl, not a creak, not a rattle, a growl. Skeptics will argue the audio was added in post, that the silhouette was a person standing just inside the bathroom, and the slam was timed for effect. But for viewers who'd been following this series from the beginning, this clip felt less like a scare and more like a response, the entity reacting to being told to leave. That distinction matters because it shifts the nature of what's being described here from a passive haunting to something that listens, something that communicates on its own terms. And then came update 12. By this point, a full week had passed without significant activity, and then, one night, he heard whispering coming from the bathroom. Multiple voices, he says, overlapping, like a conversation happening just out of reach. He approached slowly in the dark, phone recording. Watch.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear this. I'm gonna try and be really quiet. I'm being really quiet. Is somebody in there?
Indistinct, layered whispering can be heard coming from the completely dark and empty bathroom. And when he finally asks out loud whether someone is in there, the whispering stops instantly and is replaced by loud, raspy, heavy breathing that sounds uncomfortably close to the microphone. He rushes in, flicks the light, pulls the shower curtain aside, and the bathroom is empty, no one there. What makes this harder to explain isn't just the sounds themselves, it's the responsiveness. The whispers stopped the moment he asked the question. Something in that bathroom was aware of him, tracking him down the hallway, and chose to change from voices to breathing the instant it was directly addressed. If you've been watching this series from the beginning, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Each update escalates, each event becomes more direct, more communicative, more confrontational. Whatever this man is living with, it's not fading. The question that keeps coming back is a simple one. If you told it to leave and it growled back at you, what exactly do you say next? This next video was recorded inside what appears to be a private home at night by a man who's been dealing with escalating paranormal activity. Not the subtle, easy to dismiss kind, but the kind that responds when you talk back to it. He's walking through the house with a camera, moving from a second floor landing down toward the entryway, speaking out loud to whatever might be listening, telling it, calmly but firmly, that it can't touch him, that God's protection is with him. And up to that point, the house answers back with sharp cracking sounds, loud pops, a chandelier moving, the kind of noise that could maybe be explained away if it weren't so relentless. Then a door slams violently, and he moves into one of the rooms to investigate.
You know I have the power and the protection of God with me, so you can't do anything else to me, can you? You can close doors, you can make noises, you can move the chandelier. Back in this room. So my camera usually shuts off. Who are you? Who are you?
What you just heard isn't background noise. It's a building confrontation, a deep, disembodied groan, a heavy bang, and then a faint, raspy whisper that seems to directly answer when he asks, "Who are you?" Not with silence, but with the same question thrown right back at him. And then it erupts. Violent crashing, thuds, scraping, a chaotic wall of sound coming from somewhere just off camera with no visible source. Some people who've followed cases like this point to the escalation pattern as a key detail. The idea that whatever is in the house isn't passive, it's reactive. And it appears to intensify the more it's challenged or named. Skeptics will say the sounds could be post-production audio layered in for effect. But what's harder to dismiss is the man's real-time reaction, the heavy breathing, the startled questions, the moment where his voice shifts from confident to genuinely rattled. Whatever was in that house didn't seem satisfied with just being heard. Now, in a second clip from this same location, the same man turns his camera down a hallway from an upper landing, and he says something that sets the whole thing up. Every time I turn off the light, there's like a shadow in there. He wants someone else to confirm it.
Alright, tell me I'm on fucking crack. Every time I turn off the light, there's like a shadow there. Watch. See that? Fuck. What the fuck? Tell me I'm not on fucking crack, dude. No. What, dude?
When the light goes off, a tall, dark, featureless silhouette is standing motionlessly in the open doorway at the far end of the hall. When the lights come back on, it's gone. He walks toward it anyway. Then the light goes off a second time, and it's back, standing in the exact same spot, just as still, just as opaque. Some would call this a shadow person, a term used in paranormal communities to describe humanoid, dark figures that appear to observe rather than act. Entities described across multiple cultural traditions, including in Middle Eastern folklore, where similar beings are associated with jinn. Others think the figure is digitally added, pointing to the heavily edited sound design in the clip. But that repeating behavior, same location, same stance, appearing only in the dark, is exactly what makes it so hard to look away. I've watched this one more than once, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think is standing in that doorway? Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video, because between the audio assault in the first clip and the silent, waiting figure in the second, whatever this is, it doesn't seem like it's done yet. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man named Antonio is moving through the courtyard of an abandoned asylum at night, flashlight cutting through the dark, white-walled buildings, pressing in on either side, a bucket and broom sitting outside the entrance like whoever left them there didn't plan on coming back for them. What makes this different from a standard urban exploration video is the caption, "Antonio has been here before," which means this isn't someone stumbling into something unexpected, it's someone who already knows what this place feels like at night and chose to return anyway, and that distinction matters. He hesitates at the doorway, muttering to himself in Spanish, half talking himself in and half talking himself out before shifting into prayer, invoking the blood of Christ, commanding whatever is inside to stop before he's even seen anything yet, which tells you everything about what he was expecting to find in there. Watch.
Puta, no, chicos, esto está demasiado cargado, loco. Está de... ¡Ala, qué verga! ¿Qué? Vaya, ala, no sé, entro. Me dan ganas de entrar, se los juro, porque quiero... Pero... Ok. Nosotros venimos para esto. Nosotros venimos a grabar esto. Ok. Ok, la sangre de Cristo tiene poder. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. Tú no tienes poder aquí. Estoy bañado en la sangre de Cristo, ¿entendiste? Alto demonio, basta, detente. ¡Basta, demonio! Te ordeno que te detengas. ¡Basta! Puta madre. No, chica, la mierda, loco. Mira, esa tía se está moviendo. Uy, no me jodas, no. No me jodas. No, por un momento pensé que había alguien ahí dentro. ¡Uy, no! Pensé que había alguien adentro, loco. Te lo juro que yo pensé que me iba a topar con alguien adentro. ¡Mierda! ¡Mierda!
The office chair just inside the doorway rolls backward several feet on its own, smooth, deliberate, covering real distance before stopping deep in the dark, and Antonio screams at it in Spanish, ordering it to stop. Then it rotates. No one is in that room. That movement isn't a drift, and it isn't an uneven floor. It moves with intention, and the timing is the detail most viewers can't get past, because the chair doesn't react while he's walking the path or standing in the courtyard. It moves in the exact window between the end of his prayer and the moment he steps through that doorway, as if whatever is in that room was listening to every word and waiting for him to finish. Abandoned asylums are considered some of the most residually saturated environments in paranormal research. Decades of fear and suffering absorbed into the architecture, compounding long after the building empties out. But residual energy doesn't respond to prayer, and that chair didn't drift, it waited. So what do you think? Was Antonio walking into a space thick with trapped energy, or did something in that asylum hear his prayer and decide to answer it? This next set of clips comes from a series of videos shared by the same man, recorded across multiple early morning hours, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sometimes pushing past dawn, all centered on the same claim, that La Llorona, the weeping woman of Mexican and Latin American folklore, had taken up residence in his home. For context, La Llorona is one of the most enduring figures in Hispanic tradition, a woman said to have drowned her own children in a fit of grief and rage, condemned to wander riverbanks and dark hallways forever after, wailing for the souls she can never reclaim. Parents have used her name for generations to keep children from straying out at night. She is not a casual boogeyman, so when this man starts invoking her name at 5 in the morning, locked in his bathroom, it sets a certain kind of stage. Watch.
5:23 de la mañana, gente, ya está empezando a amanecer. Yo desde las 9 de la noche estoy metido acá en el baño. A mí no me jode. Acá recién pasó un ovni y mira acá está el duende, ¿eh? ¡Deja de estar golpeando! ¡No esté golpeando! ¡No esté golpeando! ¡No! ¡Ah, no! ¡Andate! ¿Vos sos pelotudo? Te parió un teletubi, idiota, ¿eh? ¡Andate!
What you just heard was a man who claims he's been trapped in his bathroom since 9 the previous night. That's roughly 8 hours. While something on the other side of that door bangs, throws objects into the room, and refuses to let him leave. A roll of toilet paper, then a pink bottle, both sailing in from just off camera, and his response is to hurl a small trash can toward the door and yell back in rapid, panicked Spanish. Skeptics will immediately point out that everything thrown enters the frame from just off screen, exactly where a second person standing beside the camera could be standing. Others think the 8-hour detail is what makes it harder to dismiss entirely. Who sets up that kind of backstory for a joke? The build-up that follows across the next few clips starts to paint a stranger picture. In the second recording, made around 5:20 a.m., as dawn was just beginning to bleed through the window, the same man grabs what appears to be a long, thin stick and walks toward a darkened doorway. Listen closely.
5:20 de la mañana, gente. Está empezando a amanecer. Miren lo que es. Miren, ahí está el reloj. Y para los que no creían en la Llorona, miren, me desperté por los lamentos de esta. Pero no vinimos acá para estar teniéndole miedo. Venimos a darle al fandom lo que siempre busca. Mamoncita, no, mamoncita. ¿Con que te vas a venir a esconder? No te piando. No te piando. Levandum nerviosa. ¿Dónde estás? Salí. De donde quieras que estés, maldita. ¿No te das cuenta que ya nos cansaste con los pelos parados? Siempre lo mismo. Acá, se escuchó el ruido. Espectro. Baboso.
There's a dark shape visible in the doorway, vaguely humanoid, standing still, appearing to shift or retreat as he moves toward it. His approach is anything but afraid though. He taunts it in Spanish, recites what sounds like a parody of a magic spell, dares it to come out, and calls it a slimy spectre while making lightsaber sounds with his mouth. The comedic framing is deliberate, and it undercuts the eeriness of that figure in the doorway almost immediately. But here's the thing, the shape is there, and it does move. Whether that's a person, a shadow, or something else is genuinely difficult to say given the low light and shaky footage. By the third recording, made at 4:31 a.m. during a rainstorm, he's carrying a small wicker Christmas tree ornament and once again pointing his camera down a hallway toward a partially open door. Watch.
4:31 de la mañana, gente. Está lloviendo, miren lo que es. Y les voy a mostrar la Llorona y quiero que ustedes saquen su captura de pantalla. Acá tengo el arbolito navideño del económico, nomás de este que te regalan en cualquier basurero. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Y no tiene pies, Miren lo que es. Pero acá no vinimos a tenerle miedo, gente. Acá vinimos a darle al verdadero fandom lo que siempre busca. ¿Dónde estás? ¿Por qué no salís? No, porque atrás de la puerta, puede esconderse atrás de la puerta. ¿Por qué no salís? ¿Por qué no salís? ¿Querés que te encanten los jingle bells? ¿Querés que te cante? Siempre lo mismo contigo, ¿no? Siempre apostando a que no te das, que sí, que te tengo miedo, ¿no? ¿Quieres asustar al próximo, digo, Tengo el arbolito económico del económico acá. ¿Por qué no sales? ¿Por qué no sales de donde estás? Acá se escucha ruido. ¿Dónde estás? No te piando.
The figure standing in that dark gap is tall, slender, and completely motionless, and he claims it has no feet, though the bottom of whatever it is stays out of frame. He rushes in anyway, lights come on, and he spends the rest of the clip searching a cluttered bedroom, yelling challenges, offering to sing jingle bells, demanding the entity show itself. No audio anomaly is captured. Nothing moves on its own. And yet, that initial image in the doorway, static, dark, upright, keeps nagging at you. The fourth clip was filmed at 2:21 a.m., the coldest and darkest of the bunch, and the tone shifts. Watch closely.
2:21 de la mañana, gente. Yo les voy a mostrar lo que es la Llorona. Está haciendo 2 grados bajo cero. Allá está el reloj, las 2:21 de la mañana. Miren lo que es. Miren. Saquen sus capturas de pantalla. Miren, no te piando. Los seguidores me pidieron que diga esta frase. Padre nuestro. Escuchen. ¿Dónde estás? Vení, salí acá. Tienen que tener cuidado, gente, que no le pique. Tienen que tener cuidado que no le vaya a picar, gente. Allá está, miren, atrás de la ventana, no te piando. ¿Por qué no venís acá? ¿Por qué no venís a pararte de mano, Te voy a hacer volver de donde viniste. Agarrá y andate, mal peinada.
Right after he shouts a prayer, Padre Nuestro, a high-pitched wailing scream erupts from somewhere off camera. It's sharp and unmistakable, the kind of sound that would make the hair stand up on your neck. He immediately yells for anyone watching to listen, and his breathing goes ragged and panicked in a way that feels less theatrical than the earlier clips. That scream is the closest any of these recordings get to the La Llorona mythos directly. Her legend is built entirely around that sound, a woman's wail near dark spaces and doorways in the small hours of the morning. Skeptics argue it's a sound effect dropped in during editing, and the timing, perfectly synchronized with the prayer, is almost too convenient. But if you were standing in that house at 2 a.m., you might not stop to consider the editing timeline. The fifth and final recording, made at 4:33 a.m., takes the whole series in a direction that's harder to categorize. Watch.
4:33 de la mañana, gente, ya está empezando a amanecer. Miren lo que son los pollitos, cómo ya están cantando. Y a la gente que no cree en la Llorona, miren lo que es eso. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es, cómo se está moviendo para todos lados, como que parece que tiene Parkinson ahí. Pero acá no vinimos a tenerle miedo, vinimos a darle al fondo lo que siempre busca. A ver. Ah, con que escondiéndose, ¿eh? No. Acá te mando una nudu, por la duda. Y te mando otro regalo por si te querés venir a vivir acá. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Te voy a traer un acondicionador. A ver si te pones un poco en el pelo, porque las veces que vengo acá tenés los pelos parados. ¡Ridícula! Te reprendo en el nombre de todos los santos que pueden haber en el mundo. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Yo me miré todos los capítulos de las Tortugas Ninjas.
Taken together, what this series actually represents is genuinely difficult to pin down. 5 videos that oscillate between something that might be a real experience and something that might be elaborate, deliberately funny performance art built around one of the most potent figures in Latin American folklore. Whether or not La Llorona has anything to do with any of it, you be the judge. The following video was recorded inside an unfinished house during what appeared to be a routine walkthrough. A man moving through empty rooms, checking around corners, calling out into the silence the way most of us probably would if we felt like something was off. The house is under active construction, tools and paint cans scattered across the floors, new cabinets still waiting to be finished, a dark concrete staircase leading down into a basement that he approaches cautiously from the very first frame. He keeps calling out, "Hello? Anybody here?" Moving from room to room, his footsteps loud on the new wood-look flooring, the whole place feeling oddly tense despite being completely empty. Then something small happens first. A long piece of metal trim, balanced on the edge of the kitchen island, begins to slowly slide and drops to the floor with a soft thud, just enough to make him stop. He says, "What the heck is that?" and edges toward a bedroom doorway, still calling out. Watch.
Hello? Hello? Anybody here? Hello? Hello? The heck is that? Hello? Who is it?
What follows is a sequence that's hard to process even on a second viewing. 2 loud, sharp bangs erupt from off camera. Then an interior hallway door slams shut with violent force. And not slowly, not drifting, but snapping shut as if something threw it. Seconds later, the basement door slams shut behind him. He shouts, "Who is it?" And then a metallic clanging sound starts from inside that now closed basement. He screams and runs, dropping the phone completely, leaving the camera on the floor pointing up at the ceiling. And then an enormous crash erupts from somewhere above, like something structural gave way or was thrown. The camera sits there alone for over a minute, and then something weird happens. The phone spins by itself. After a while, he comes back, out of breath and visibly shaken, to pick up his phone. Some viewers have argued the metal trim sliding was a natural event, precarious placement, vibration from footsteps, but the door slamming sequence is harder to dismiss. Poltergeist activity, according to many paranormal researchers, often follows exactly this kind of pattern. Not one event, but a rapid chain of them, as if something is escalating deliberately, pushing harder each time it's acknowledged. The second clip picks up somewhere similar in energy. At nighttime, in what appears to be a residential home, a man moves through the house with his phone, checking each room, a downstairs bedroom, a cluttered room, a laundry area, then down into a basement living space. You can hear a cough, a creak, the ambient quiet of a house at night. Then at 43 seconds, every light in the house goes out at once. Listen closely. What he finds when he makes it back upstairs is what stops you cold. The refrigerator door is standing wide open. A wooden dining chair has been placed on top of the table. A framed picture on the wall is now hanging at a severe angle. And in the kitchen, a large knife is standing upright, blade stabbed down into a cutting board. None of those things were like that before he went downstairs. The sound design throughout this clip, a low droning hum, a high-pitched screech when the lights cut, does feel added, and the progression of reveals follows a structure that's almost too clean, too cinematic. Some viewers called it staged almost immediately. But here's the thing, the knife in the cutting board, standing perfectly upright, is the kind of image that stays with you regardless of what you believe about it. In poltergeist cases, sharp objects being positioned or moved deliberately is one of the most documented and most disturbing categories of reported activity, with some traditions interpreting it as a specific kind of threat, not random chaos, but something intentional and directed. Whether both of these clips represent genuine events or carefully constructed moments, the pattern they share is unmistakable. A house that seems quiet, a man alone, and then everything happening at once. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you're enjoying watching this video, like and subscribe. Because in both cases, whatever the explanation, neither man stuck around long enough to find out what came next. In the following clip you're about to watch, a Blink security camera mounted high on a wall captures something strange in the hallway of a home late at night. A teenager noticed his cat acting strange. Not the usual zoomies or chasing something across the floor, but deliberately trying to get his attention, persistent enough that he eventually did what you're apparently supposed to do when a cat leads you somewhere. He followed it. The cat takes him straight to his brother and sister's room, and he goes in. And then, after a few moments inside, he comes back out with an urgency that tells you everything you need to know about what he found in there. Not a slow walk, not a casual exit, but the kind of sprint that your body produces when your brain has already decided that whatever is behind you is not something you want to be near. Now, the camera doesn't show us what he saw inside that room, and honestly, that might be worse, because what he said he saw was a 7-foot-tall black figure standing in there, in his sibling's room, in a house where a cat apparently knew it was there before any person did. In paranormal research, animals consistently demonstrate awareness of presences that humans can't perceive, registering something in the electromagnetic or sensory range that we lost access to somewhere along the way. And a cat that leads someone directly to the room where an entity is standing isn't acting randomly, it's communicating. So what do you think? Was there something 7 feet tall waiting in that room? Or did the cat lead him somewhere? His imagination did the rest of the work. In this next clip, a night security guard is doing his rounds at work. Glass door in front of him. The kind of quiet, uneventful shift that makes up most of the job. He's been working this post long enough that he knows every sound and every shadow in that building, which is exactly why he started filming when he noticed something he couldn't explain. He flips the camera to the front-facing view, points it toward the glass door, and what he catches on the other side of that glass stops him cold. Watch.
Es solo un video. El video. ¿Alguien vio los dedos?
Right there at the handle of the door. Fingers, visible through the glass, pressed against it from the outside, and then slowly, deliberately withdrawn, pulled back into the darkness, the way you'd pull your hand away if you suddenly realized you'd been seen. Not a smear, not a reflection, not light playing off the surface. Fingers, with the kind of slow, intentional movement that puts them in a completely different category from anything environmental. And this isn't the first time he's noticed something at that door. He makes that clear. This is just the first time he had a camera running when it happened. In paranormal research, liminal spaces like building entrances, lobbies, and glass thresholds are considered hotspots for activity precisely because they exist between two states, inside and outside, safe and exposed, known and unknown. And whatever presses itself against that boundary isn't lost or wandering, it's probing. So what do you think? Is something testing that door from the other side? Or does this guard have a very human problem he hasn't fully accounted for yet? In this next clip, a woman is home alone in her apartment during the day when her doorbell rings. Not once, but repeatedly, with no one on the other side. She's filming on her phone, walking slowly toward her front door, and you can already hear in the way she moves that this isn't her first time dealing with something like this. Her voice, cautious at first, calls out in French, asking if anyone's there. The hallway outside is completely empty. She checks the staircase. Nothing. Watch.
Y a quelqu'un?
The doorbell rings 3 times across less than a minute, and each time she opens that door, there's no one there. Not in the hallway, not on the stairs, not anywhere she can see. By the second ring, she sounds exhausted, muttering in French that she's sick of this, that she can't keep going through it. That detail is telling. This isn't shock. It's someone who's been worn down by repetition. Then the third ring hits, and the camera jerks violently as she lets out a sharp, terrified scream. There's something about the third ring that breaks her completely, maybe because she'd already confirmed the space was empty, and it rang anyway. Some believe this kind of recurring, disembodied doorbell activity is consistent with what paranormal researchers call a poltergeist, an entity associated less with haunting a location and more with directing its energy toward a specific person, often escalating over time. Skeptics would say a faulty wireless doorbell could explain it. But a faulty doorbell doesn't explain why she sounds like someone who's been fighting this battle alone for a very long time. So what do you think she's actually dealing with? The following videos appear to be captured by a group of men conducting what looks like a paranormal investigation inside a cluttered, dimly lit room, the kind of space that already feels charged before anything unusual happens, with old stained walls, worn furniture, and objects arranged almost as if they've been placed there intentionally. The men are speaking Romanian throughout, and at one point, one of them can be heard reciting what sounds like a religious confession, solemn, almost liturgical, which sets a tone that's hard to shake. Watch.
Mărturisesc că sunt vinovat focului de veci, viermilor neadormiți. Uai de mine! Uai de mine, ce-a fost asta? Ui, să învârtească! Uai de mine, ai văzut? Doi, să învârtească! Mamă, frate, ce-a fost asta? Uite așa să învârtească! Vai de mine, dacă l-am... Vai, Leo, ce-a fost asta? Mamă, frate, am prins-o pe cameră, jur. Ui, hai-te, mă, că... Viermilor neadormiți. Uai de mine! Uai de mine, ce-a fost asta?
A wooden chair in the adjacent room violently tips over backwards with a loud crash, with no visible person anywhere near it, and the men immediately erupt into panicked shouting, one of them yelling that the chair spun on its own, another asking, what on earth just happened? The slow motion replay makes it even harder to dismiss, because you can see the full arc of the movement with nothing and no one initiating it. Some viewers think the prayer being recited at the exact moment of impact is the most unsettling detail, not because it's evidence of anything specific, but because it raises the question of whether something was already being invited in before the camera was even rolling. In Romanian folk tradition, reciting confessions aloud in a spiritually charged space is sometimes believed to provoke a response from entities that feed on guilt or unresolved spiritual debt. And if that chair moving was the beginning, what came next suggests it was far from over. Not long after, the activity shifted from a single object to something far more chaotic.
Gata, gata, adă farfurile repede. Adă repede farfurile.
Băi, în picior mi-o dat, măi.
Adă repede, fac, gata, opriți tot. Uite, 2 căni o dat. Gata, opriți-vă. Opriți înregistrarea. Cu plăcere, da, da. Băi, băi, băi.
2 white ceramic mugs are violently thrown from a cabinet on the far side of the room, one shattering completely on the floor, sending shards and reddish liquid across a striped rug. And then just as the men start to collect themselves, a second loud bang sends another object flying, one of them saying it struck his leg. The men's dialogue is raw and unfiltered, someone telling them to stop recording, another voice responding, possibly from a device in the room, with pleasure. That detail alone stopped a lot of viewers cold. Whether it came from a spirit box or an electronic device picking up a stray signal, nobody has been able to confirm it. But the pattern is hard to ignore. First a chair, now mugs thrown with enough force to shatter and injure, which is exactly the kind of escalation poltergeist activity tends to follow, starting with isolated movements and progressing steadily toward objects making contact with people. The men's reactions, the way they scramble, the way one of them just says, "Enough, stop everything," don't read as performance. They investigated anyway, Watch closely.
Îndrăznind de alerg la milostivirea ta cu frică și cu cutremur. Cu cutremur, mă. Ia! Cât am greșit ție. Băi, fii atent. Vai de capul meu. Ia, că-o căzut tot. Ia, că-o căzut tot bastoanele, o căzut tot, băi, omule, băi. Ia bastonul. Ia bastonul din smântână, de unde? Că nu mai este niciun baston, nimic. Gata e. E gata e. Ia vezi, că și pune poate. Vezi, aici. Nu ai mă, să dea draci dacă e ceva, tu ești nebun. Adi, voi acolo pe bastonul iar. Lasă-o în pizdă, mă. Nu e frate niciun baston, nimic. Ia vezi, bag lumina pe partea asta. Ia. Bagă și după aia, bagă și după asta. Na, că nu-i nimic. Nimica? Nimica, frate, dispără bastonul, iar gata. Și de sub de acolo? Nimic. Nici pe acolo nimic. Uite păpușa asta deșurată. Și eu preotul. Bă, uitați-o cu dulapul cum se mișcă singur, mă, frate, tu ești nebun. Ah! Unde-s, măi? Nu-i niciun baston. Uite. Uite țăpă ăsta, uite. Niciun baston, nimic. Uite. 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 Uite, cade bila jos, acum. Uite dulapul care se mișcă singur, uite, nu-i legat cu nimic, uite. Uite. Voi sunteți nebuni, băi? Băi, noi când v-am zis că... Băi, nu mai există, gata, încăpere. Nu mai există încăpere, ca să știți. Noi suntem numărul 1, suntem. Hai de mine, ce-a fost asta? Ce-a fost asta? E jale, mâncați așa. Stay calm. Stay calm. Stay calm. Calm down. Odată cu ce-odată. Hai, au reușit, stați calm. Gata, terminat-o, hai. Stay calm. Adă bastonul ca înapoi. Trebuie să fac carte aici într-un pic. Portal îmi trebuie. Portalul îmi trebuie. E sub dulap bastonul.
Objects on a small wooden cabinet begin vibrating and sliding on their own before two walking canes, propped against the wall, are forcefully thrown to the floor. Then the entire cabinet jolts and shakes as if grabbed from beneath, and a sharp, unexplained bang erupts from somewhere off camera, sending the men stumbling backward. One of them mentions closing a portal, which suggests they weren't just observing, but had been actively attempting some form of spiritual communication beforehand. And if something had been deliberately summoned, the escalating violence of these responses starts to feel less like random activity and more like something reacting with increasing irritation. The missing cane is arguably the strangest detail. Investigators can only account for one of the two that fell, and despite searching the area thoroughly, the second one never turns up on camera. A quiet footnote that somehow lands harder than the chaos around it. So what do you think? Was this group of men simply documenting a haunted space, or did they walk into that room and wake something up that had no interest in being observed? In this next clip, a woman is home alone at night, or at least she believes she is, when she notices something standing behind the frosted glass panel of her bathroom door. She's filming on her phone, her voice dropping to a hushed, anxious whisper as she explains in Spanish that she can see the shape from where she's standing, but the phone's reflection keeps getting in the way. She says she literally can't go to the bathroom in peace because of whoever or whatever is there. Then she moves through the house, down a dark hallway with light cutting in from a room at the far end, before showing her bedroom to prove a point. Watch.
De acá lo veo, pero el celular le da el reflejo. Literalmente no puedo ir al baño tranquila porque está él. Y no hay nadie en la casa. Nadie de nadie está en la casa.
Through the textured glass of that door, you can make out a dark, humanoid silhouette, a head and shoulders, motionless, standing just on the other side. She walks the camera through the rest of the house, showing an empty bedroom, an unmade bed, no one anywhere. No one is in the house. she says. No one at all. That tension between what she sees and what should logically be there is hard to shake. Some viewers think it's a shadow cast by an object or a trick of the light bouncing off the frosted glass. Others aren't so sure because the shape is too specific, the rounded head, the width of the shoulders, to easily dismiss. That alone is unsettling. But what makes the second clip arguably worse is how calm everything is before it happens. Her and her husband are in bed watching television, relaxed, covered in blankets when this happens.
En el mejor de los casos, la hemorragia se absorbe o continuará la hemorragia y hará que el cerebro se inflame. ¿Qué significa eso?
The blanket covering the man's left shoulder is suddenly yanked downward with a sharp, forceful tug. Fast, violent, and completely without explanation, and a distinct swooshing sound goes with it. He flinches immediately, looking down toward his right. She turns her head in the same direction. There's no one else in the frame. Some believe what was caught is classic poltergeist behavior, physical interference with objects in an otherwise calm domestic space, the kind of activity that tends to escalate when ignored. Skeptics will point to the static camera and suggest it was staged, but the couple's reaction is immediate and looks genuinely startled. Whether these two clips are connected or not, they both carry the same unsettling thread, the idea that something might be sharing a space that's supposed to be private. And like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video. What would you do if you started seeing shapes behind closed doors in your own home? In the following clip you're about to watch, a man who lives alone in a house built in the 1940s has been hearing children laughing and playing in his basement for long enough that it's become a pattern he can no longer rationalize away. And on this particular day, he decides he's done ignoring it. He walks to the basement door, reaches for the old brass doorknob, and calls down the stairs in a firm voice, telling whatever's down there to knock it off. And that's when the footsteps start. Fast, deliberate, coming up the stairs toward the door with no visible body attached to them. So he slams it shut. Then this happens.
I hear you down there. Knock it off. Stop! Stop it! Oh, no.
In paranormal research, child entities that move between floors, respond to commands, and vanish without trace are among the most unnerving categories of domestic haunting. Not because they present as threatening, but because the combination of something innocent sounding and something physically impossible occupying the same space creates a kind of cognitive dissonance that's very hard to shake. A house built in the 40s has had decades of lives move through it, and not all of them finished cleanly. So what do you think? Is there a little girl in that house who never found her way out? Or is something in that basement using the sound of laughter specifically because it knows he won't run from a child? In this next clip, a man is completely alone in his house late at night when something in his basement starts to disturb his peace. For context, whatever that thing is has been keeping him up for days. He says it started as a faint sound, the kind you convince yourself is the house settling or a neighbor's TV bleeding through the walls. But it kept coming back, night after night, and it kept getting louder. He describes it as crying, like a baby wailing, sometimes accompanied by what sounds like someone humming to calm that baby down. To make that stranger, he lives by himself. There's no baby, there's no one else. So he does what a lot of people in his situation probably shouldn't do. He grabs his camera, turns off the lights, and goes to investigate. If you listen carefully, once the clip starts, you'll hear exactly what he's been describing before he even has to explain it. The bells he's hung on the basement door are a detail worth paying attention to too, a folk practice used in some traditions to alert against spirits passing through. Watch.
Guys, something's on the basement. Anybody down there? Hello? Hello? Guys, I have been noticing that at nighttime when I shut the lights off, I don't know if you can hear it.
somebody humming, like calming a baby down. And I live by myself. There's literally nobody here in my house. And I've been noticing that there's been a lot of crying. Lots of crying. Can you guys hear it? I wonder where it's coming from, and I'm just curious. Let's check it out. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, I command the demons to leave my house immediately. Immediately. I command the demons to leave my house immediately. Oh, that sounds like it's coming from the basement. Oi. Guys, it looks like it's coming from the basement. Oh, fuck! Holy shit! Holy fuck! That was a big scream. Oh shit! Holy fuck! Oh shit! Holy fuck! Oh, fuck.
Some people believe the crying is consistent with what's described in certain Latin American traditions as the presence of La Llorona, the weeping woman, a spirit believed to wander at night, mourning and crying. Skeptics point to the clean audio quality and argue the sounds are too well timed to be accidental. But that explanation gets harder to hold on to when you hear what comes out of that basement. What do you think is behind that door? Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video. The bells never rang, and whatever was on the other side of it didn't need a door to make itself known. In this next clip, a static security camera captured what appears to be an entirely ordinary living room. A couch draped with blankets, a leather recliner, a small Christmas tree in the corner. A completely still, empty scene with nobody inside. The footage is time-stamped January 10th of 2026, and for nearly 30 full seconds, not a single thing moves. Nothing shifts, nothing falls. But the audio is a different story entirely. Listen closely. What you just heard in that empty room is a sequence of sounds that starts with what many describe as a high-pitched, frantic scream, something that carries the cadence of "Leave me alone" before collapsing into low, guttural moaning and overlapping wails that fluctuate in pitch and intensity. Near the end, a rasping voice seems to say, "Get out of here." Not one person was in that room. Some viewers think this is residual audio, a paranormal theory suggesting that intense emotional trauma can somehow imprint itself onto a location and replay without warning, like a recording embedded in the walls themselves. Others believe whatever produced those sounds wasn't residual at all, but active, reactive, and fully aware the camera was running. The fact that the room stays completely still while all of that unfolds makes it somehow harder to dismiss, not easier. So what do you think was in there? In the following clip you're about to watch, a man is standing in a dark hallway late at night, looking into his unlit kitchen, and through the faint glow coming through the window, he can just make out a silhouette moving in there, the steady rhythmic sound of a knife on a cutting board filling the silence. He assumes it's his girlfriend, calls out to her casually, asking what she's doing, cooking in the dark. Watch.
Babe, what are you doing in the dark?
The moment the lights come on, The kitchen is completely empty. No one at the counter, no one anywhere in the room, nothing on the cutting board, no explanation for the sound that was filling that space just seconds ago. He switches the lights back off, and she's there again. Same spot, same motion, as if the light itself is what she can't exist inside. That specific detail, a presence that appears in darkness and vanishes under light, is one of the more consistently reported phenomena in residual haunting cases, where an energy imprint tied to a location replays the same actions in the same space on its own loop, completely indifferent to whoever is watching. In paranormal research, kitchens are considered particularly susceptible to this kind of residual activity, given the repetitive, emotionally charged nature of the tasks performed in them over years and decades. The same motions, the same sounds, worn so deeply into the fabric of a space that they outlast the person who made them. So what do you think? Is this a loop playing out from someone who used to live in that kitchen, or something that was never quite human to begin with? Now, in this next video, a man named Tristan had been dealing with something in his home that wasn't content to stay in one room or limit itself to one kind of disturbance. It moved through the house, it opened things, it threw things, and according to the narration, nothing he tried made any difference. The first incident starts in a narrow hallway at night, where he's following his cat with a handheld camera. The cat stops at the end of the hall and crouches down, staring at the gap beneath a closed door. And if you know anything about animals around paranormal activity, you already know that's not a good sign. Then the door handle begins to jiggle violently on its own, twisting up and down with force, before the door swings open entirely. He enters what turns out to be a laundry room, and no one is there. Watch.
Bah là, je suis en train de me battre pour mettre les diagrammes et tous les chiffres passés.
Il faut que mon sommeil puisse partir dans mes rondelles de courant. Je me sers de morceaux de bétarde pour y arriver. Avec un peu de chance, j'arriverai à toucher le fond. Et attacher ça en faisant le cassant. Si jamais j'accroche au fond, le bras cédera dans le corps de Yves et je récupère les...
What makes the second clip arguably more unsettling is that it's security camera footage. Static, ambient, no added sound design. Tristan, in a grey hoodie, walks toward a hallway entrance on the far right of the frame when a faint, semi-transparent figure, child-sized, hovering in the doorway, becomes visible for a few seconds before simply disappearing. Then, a wicker basket launches out of that same hallway with enough force to hit the wall. Many viewers watching this reached for the poltergeist label immediately, and it's easy to see why. Poltergeist activity in paranormal research tends to follow a specific pattern, escalating physical disturbances, objects thrown rather than simply moved, and an energy that seems almost deliberate rather than residual. Skeptics argue the basket could have been rigged, but the apparition appearing just before, it is harder to dismiss that easily. If you've been following cases like this, the child-shaped figure is what the comments couldn't let go of. So what exactly was standing in that doorway, and where did it go? In this next clip, a group of friends were all asleep when knocking woke them up at 3 in the morning. 4 heavy impacts, loud enough to pull everyone out of sleep at once. Their first thought was someone messing around outside, the kind of explanation you reach for at 3 in the morning because it's the only one that makes sense. In the morning, they pulled up the CCTV to find their answer, and what they found instead was a small cat sitting outside the closed restaurant, appearing in the frame with no visible entry, no jump, no walk-in, just there between one frame and the next as if it materialized. Watch. But here's what the poster wants you to pay attention to. Listen carefully for the moment the cat leaves, because not long after it disappears from the frame, the knocking starts again. The cat and the knocking are connected in a way that doesn't have a clean explanation, and the poster notes this isn't an isolated incident, that there has been a presence calling out around this location repeatedly, often enough that they're no longer surprised by it, just unsettled. In many Southeast Asian traditions, cats, particularly ones that appear and disappear without obvious explanation, are believed to carry spiritual significance, sometimes acting as vessels for wandering entities, or as indicators of a presence nearby that the human eye can't directly perceive. 3 knocks at 3 in the morning is a combination that carries weight across multiple traditions, widely associated with a deliberate spiritual provocation. So what do you think? Was that cat carrying something with it, or was it simply drawn to the same spot that something else had already claimed? In the following clip you're about to watch, a woman wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of something moving inside her walk-in closet. And then, from inside that darkness, she hears her husband's voice whispering her name, telling her to come to him. She freezes because her husband is lying right next to her in bed. She picks up her phone and starts filming. Watch.
Babe, come here.
What?
Come here.
Oh my God.
Don't look inside.
But the detail from the caption is what reframes everything. She notes that her husband seemed almost calm when he heard the voice. Not startled, not confused, almost as if this wasn't the first time. And she hasn't been able to stop sitting with one specific thought since. What if that voice in the closet really was her husband, trying not to alert whoever was lying next to her? In paranormal research, entities that mimic the voices of loved ones to lure people toward isolated spaces are considered among the most deliberately predatory forms of manifestation, patient, calculated, and deeply aware of exactly which voice will make you move without thinking. So what do you think? Was something occupying that bed, or was something in that closet that already knew her husband's voice well enough to use it?